Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our UN Pathways, NGO Pathways program series. I'm Jason Scorza. I'm Vice Provost for International Education at Fairleigh Dickinson University. What I will do is just briefly discuss the ground rules for this event. The program will take the form of a lecture followed by panel discussion, followed by Q&A from the audience. We are videotaping the entire program, so I would ask those of you with cellular telephones and other electronic devices to please put them on silence. I would also ask that as you move around the room that you respect our need to get a good video and audio quality. What we have in mind tonight will surely be a very interesting discussion. This will be the first in what we hope will be a series of programs that emphasize youth voices from around the world. In this instance, we'll be focusing on the MENA region, Middle East, and North Africa. We are very fortunate to have as our moderator for today a recent graduate of our executive MBA program, Ms. Reem Al-Oyaidi, who has assumed a role of leadership in preparing and organizing tonight's program. Without further ado, I would like to turn the proceedings over to Reem. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for attending our event tonight, and we hope you learn and enjoy our presentation and panel discussion. Before we start our event, we would like very much to thank Dr. Joanne Murphy, who gave us the opportunity and the chance to be part of this amazing event. Tonight, we will cover a background about each country from Egypt, Morocco, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. We are also going to answer some of the big questions. I'm sure one of the questions is why 2011, what happened in that year, and how their situations are similar or different between these countries. We're also going to cover some major issues that youth are facing in the MENA region. How can youth be part of the solution and the decision-making and not only the revolution? And also, we're going to go over their personal vision and dreams for a better future in their countries. And now, please welcome with me Dr. Nasser, who will be providing us with an overview of the Arab world and its internal and external conflict. Dr. Nasser?
Good evening. I believe I received a big title here to cover, which is the internal and external problems of the Arab Middle East and North Africa. I would like to, since I was given only 10 minutes, I would like to make my presentation a form of highlighting certain issues. The first is what we are referring to here, winds of change, refer to the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring basically is a mass protest, uprising of young people across the Arab region, demanding social, political, economic change in the system as it has been ruled and conducted by several leading elites. One might raise a question, how can we talk about the Arab region and North Africa, Middle East and North Africa, while there are so many differences between countries such as Morocco compared to Yemen, compared to Egypt, compared to Jordan, compared to Syria, etc., which is certainly true. But what all those young people share in common is several demands. First of all, they share the demand of turning their societies into a kind of civil state. And civil state means that the authority and power in that society is conducted and achieved and ruled by the people themselves, not by their elites. So civil society is based on several assumptions. The first one is the notion of citizenship, which grants equality to everyone in society, regardless of his age, gender, religion, ethnic background, or nationality. Citizenship also opens equal opportunities for economic participation, political participation in the lives of people in every country. This also means that we are talking about a democracy, a democratic state in which there is a separation between religion and state institutions. In addition to that, the young movement or the youth movement in the Arab world demands more democratization and a kind of social justice, which means until now the whole economy in many of the Arab worlds is controlled by a thin elite of people, and the gap between the top elite, which is in terms of population size is very, very small, compared to the masses is very large. To give you an example, in Egypt, for example, 40 million people, almost half of the population in Egypt, live in poverty, and many of them live on less than $2 a day, while there are very rich people who run the economy through corruption and other association to government that make millions, and they have bank accounts in Switzerland and across the globe, and they travel in yachts and they have villas in the Mediterranean shores of France and other places. So social justice is one of the issues, which implies basically the redistribution of wealth in the country to benefit the majority of people. Another demand is a kind of restoring the regional national security of Arab countries. There is no such a thing in the last 30 years or so. The Arab countries lost their kind of sense of security, and they became proxies for international powers. The question is that someone will ask himself or herself is, what has triggered also socially those social movements across the Arab world? As I mentioned before, lack of social justice, lack of political freedom, increasing rates of unemployment, and religious and political oppression, and the increased sense of loss of pride in the region. What were the social and demographic forces that helped this process succeed to some extent? I can highlight three major factors. The first one is rapid increase in literacy, especially among women. And in many of the Arab countries, this kind of goal or this rate was achieved at in different years. You can compare, for example, Lebanon to Yemen. You see that in Lebanon, literacy rates, especially among women, has been achieved in the 1940s, while Yemen, they were achieved in late 1990s or so. And once those literacy rates have been achieved, there will follow kind of immediately falling birth rates in the community and population growth, which are both elements of modernization in society and set the ground for development and progress of a society. The last factor is decline in the widespread kind of custom, which we call it endogamy, marrying within the family or ethnic group or cousins in the Arab world. This custom has declined even in Saudi Arabia or Yemen to almost 20% or so, compared to 70 or 80% in the 1970s or so. So these are social and demographic forces or factors that set the ground for the political changes to take place. Without those kind of demographic and social forces, there will be no successful uprising in the Arab countries. Historically, the factors that led to the failure of the Arab states are many. If we go back to the 1940s, most Arab countries lived or were controlled by colonial forces such as Britain and France in most cases, and partially by Italy, which was colonizing Libya. Between the by the late 1940s, most Arab countries achieved their independence. However, the post-colonial era, those countries were still struggling with colonialism because immediately after World War II, the world was divided in two major blocks, the Eastern and the Western, and that's the Cold War found or made the Arab world an arena for global struggles. For example, we see that in 1956, Britain, France, and Israel attacked Egypt to regain control over the Suez Canal, which was perceived by the time by the British colonialism as a major waterway for their trade and military forces to the Far East and their global reach and control. Those wars, for example, and the war later on to be with the Arab-Israeli War in 1967, those wars exhausted the national resources of the country and derailed the process of modernization in those countries from its right path. Frequently, there were also internal conflicts in between or in intra-Arab countries, such as the conflict in Jordan, the conflict between Yemen and Saudi Arabia, the conflict where Egypt was involved in Yemen until 1967, actually, and other conflicts in the region. Those conflicts were part of the heritage of colonialism, and I don't know how much you know about colonialism, but colonial forces, when they conquer a country, they leave it ravaged after that. They increase internal conflicts, they change the political structure in the country, and the era post-colonialism, in many cases, is an experience of power struggle among different factions in that country over resources, or politics, or economy, and many other issues. So the promise in the 1940s of those national movements across the Arab world was that with independence, Arab countries will achieve progress, will use science as a tool to develop their own countries, and democracy will be one of the major elements and foundation of their societies. However, the global and regional conflicts prevented those processes to take place, and by 1967, actually, they were put on hold until now. So between 1967 and today, there came into power many local juntas, if you like the case in Egypt, the case in Libya, the case in Yemen, the case in Syria, the case in Jordan, and many of those were either proxies of global forces. To give you an example, when the uprising in Egypt started, the American administration were caught by surprise, and they, for a long time, wanted Hosni Mubarak, the old regime, to maintain or to stay in power. Because for those global forces, global agents, stability in the country is more important than democracy in that country, and their selective support of social change in the Middle East is very obvious if you look at the case of Bahrain compared to the case of Libya, you look at the case of Syria compared to the case of Palestine, you look at the case of Jordan compared to the case of Saudi Arabia. No one in the administration, whether in America or the Western countries' administrations in Britain, France, Germany, talk about change or intervention in the political process in Saudi Arabia, and some of you might guess why they do not do so, because they are more interested in stability in those countries as a source of global energy and global capitalism, which benefits them on the expense of the local population who seek to live in democracy and achieve social justice. I prepared the lecture for 3 hours, but apparently I'm going to stop here because I have no idea what you know about the Middle East, what you don't know. I can give you a long lecture about the whole history of national movements, country by country, just to give you an example. I will give you a few examples to illustrate the case. There are differences between, for example, Tunisia, and Egypt, why in those countries there was no need for international community to intervene and destroy the infrastructure in those countries compared to Libya. First of all, both in Egypt and Tunisia, there are many civil society organizations, what we call NGOs. And those NGOs, very active in organizing the society, including in Tunisia, for example, when this uprising started, those labor unions, when those labor unions decided or declared a strike or supporting the revolution, everyone who was in the country working for the government or non-government went on strike. And that certainly made its impact immediately on the government itself. So there was the infrastructure, the social infrastructure that existed in Tunisia, which allowed the revolution to be successful and achieve its immediate goals of social change, political change, within a few days. The same thing in Egypt. There are many civil society organizations that are well organized, from the extreme right to the extreme left, if you like, political spectrum. And all of those organizations certainly helped and get coordinated together to achieve those revolutionary goals. The situation in Libya is totally different. Libya is still in terms of social organization and civil society, and it's still in embryonic stages where tribal loyalty is more important than anything else. However, if we compare it to Yemen, still in Yemen it's very tribal society, but still there are seeds of civil society organization that help the mobilization of people to the streets and in a peaceful manner to demonstrate against the regime. So there are many differences. Each country has its own case, but I mentioned in the beginning, all of them voted by foot to go to those squares, Tahrir Square, Revolution Square, whatever the square is, in order to protest against the existing and current conditions in the Arab world, whether they were political, economic, or social. One last point that I would like to highlight. At the beginning of those revolutions, those who were advocates of stability in the Middle East, because they benefit from it for their own interest, were against the revolution because they said the fear that those revolutions will go or be occupied or be hijacked by fundamentalist Islamic fundamentalism. If there is anything that those movements trying to say is the failure of Islamic fundamentalism and protest against such an attempt to take over those those different societies. What they are trying to say, the national movements as it was failed, the Islamic alternative failed, and we are coming with a new concept that we call it civil society and civil state, in which democracy and citizenship are the major pillars. The society and politics will be inclusive, but it's not going to be fundamentalist. I promised last one, but I have another last one. Another last one is, as I mentioned before, is the international community responses to those revolutions. In the past, Western countries in particular relied on the support of leaders in those countries to achieve and maintain their own interests in that region. Strategically, I believe this is a historical mistake, because Western countries need to make alliances with the people in those countries and work with their interest in advancing democracy, and not with their oppressive regimes that they will achieve in the short term stability and profits for certain corporations, but do not really make those Western countries welcomed and beloved in those Arab countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nasser. Dr. Nasser highlighted the deep cultural upheaval serving as a possible origin for youth leadership during the crisis. Now let's take a look at Egypt with Hossam to see if this holds true in the particular case of his country, Egypt. Hossam?
Hello guys, firstly I want to thank you for your attendance, and it's my pleasure to share my experiences with such cultural diversity in FDU. This is Arab Republic of Egypt, and before my starting I want to tell you background about Egypt. Our population is almost more than 82 million, and 2 over 3 of the population are youth under the age of 30. We have 2 official religion in Egypt, Muslim and Christian. Muslim are 90%, 9% are Coptic Christian, 1% are only other Christians. And about literacy and employment rates, they are about 71 and 11 respectively. And about the Egyptian revolution, I would like to say it's Egyptian revolution, since I came here to the United States, many thought it's a political revolution. But Egyptian revolution is not only a political revolution. There is a lot of reason for such a revolution. About why Egyptians decided to take like a movement or a revolution, because of the frustration. We felt frustrated from anything. Since the last year of the old regime, Egypt was going downhill in everything, and it seems in poverty, in lack of freedom of speech, lack of political activism, and everything was going downhill. In addition to the dictatorship regime we had, they raised among Egyptian souls the psychological barrier, which is fear, and our old regime saw that things that we will be affected. But that wasn't happen until Khalid Said was killed in last June 2010. He was brutally tortured by Egyptian police officer until he died because he would just try to say no. And after this, Egyptians decided to say no, it's enough. Now we have to take an action. And the revolution take place already. It started. And reason of revolution including no democracy. We didn't have democracy in Egypt. Everything that government wants to do is only do without taking any permission, and they don't care about anyone. It's a government. Presidency inheritance. Our great ex-president wanted to inherit the presidency to his son. And we are Republic of Egypt. That means it depends on elections. And it's not allowed to inherit the presidency, and he wanted to do that. Social inequality. When you find a lot of Egyptians are eating trash, and I'm serious with eating trash, and on the contrary, others just having fun and enjoying billions of Egyptian pounds just because they have a high positions in the government. In addition to, you can find a taxi driver who has a master's degree in commerce or a bachelor's degree in sociology or psychology. And he just, because he can afford his needs to his family, he just works as a taxi driver. This is dominance, and I would like to explain the pictures. This is a building of Ministry of Interior Affairs in Egypt. And this is after revolution when Egyptians invaded the building and they burned it. And actually, all branches of the Ministry of Interior Affairs in Egypt, when people just invade the buildings, they find under the ground another world of a lot of detainees who was captured by the government just because of many reasons. Many of them, some of them were bloggers, some of them were just because they joined Muslim Brotherhood organization, and a lot of people. Consequences of the bad regime we had is political ignorance. Unfortunately, we don't understand, majority of Egyptians don't understand what's politics. Fake elections, and this is really personally happen, when you go to elect any person, you just find yourself, you take your name and you just elect a person who related to the party of the old regime, which is Patriotic Party. Poverty. As Dr. Nasser recognized that like half of Egyptians suffer from poverty, and actually like 30% of the Egyptian population are suffering, they are under the line of poverty. Unemployment, and this is really common now in Egypt. You can find all men are just, they don't have jobs because they were fired. The aims of Fair's revolution, or what our dreams, we want to get a social equality. We want to find equality among people. Freedom of speech and democracy, we need to get our pleas and our thoughts, like we can say it freely without any restrictions on your thoughts or your mind. Improvement of education, improvement of health. For education, actually, the curriculum or colleges or schools is the same since like 20 years ago. It's the same until now in colleges and in schools. No improvement in education. And for health, the government don't care about doctors and don't care about nurses, and consequently, no one care about hospital and consequently patients. For me, when I was in Egypt, and a lot of Egyptians doing more than I did actually, but one of the things that I really interested in is academic progression. I'm a school pharmacy student. I would like to complete my degree in oncology to work in cancer. I am blogging, I have blog, I am blogging about cultures and blogging what's going on in my country, and during the revolution they blogged my blog because they don't, we need to chronicle what's going on in Egypt. Community service, we already started to have projects about community service, to do a lot of things to people, to contact directly with people so that we can feel their suffrage. And one of the major things is the culture awareness. I already established a Culture Valley project, which I'm working with foreign embassies in Egypt and libraries to get knowledge about other countries, and at the same time build the culture background and education backgrounds to ourselves so that we can appreciate what other cultures offer. And about the Egyptian revolution, I would like to end by actually, we know that we will win, and actually you already won, because we don't understand politics. We don't have an agenda, or we don't have dirty games like they are doing. And I just want to end with, as an ambassador of Egypt to United States and the Near East and South Asia global program by United States Department of State, I would like to thank you so much for attending. Greetings from Egypt and greetings from Egyptian people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hossam. So as we've seen, Egyptian revolution wasn't only a political revolution. Egyptians were facing inequality, poor education and health services, in addition to dominance. And as a result of these issues, Egyptians were even facing worse results, as poverty and employment. The employment rate has been increasing, as well as having fake elections. And if young individuals such as Hossam can involve in community services, cultural awarenesses, and academic achievements, Egyptian for sure will be a better place. And now we're going to move on to Yassine, who is going to present Morocco.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Yassine Elkaryani, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is least exciting. I mean, I think the Egyptian case was more exciting, and I thank Dr. Riad and Hossam for setting a little bit the background for me to go ahead and go on with my presentation. But before that, I would like everybody to stand up for 1 minute to celebrate the change, celebrate and thank those who have been involved in getting us where we are today, those who have struggled, those who have spoken against injustice. Let's give them 1 minute of silence, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, the Kingdom of Morocco. The Wikipedia question. 32 million people, 50% under 30, literacy rate is 52%, basically 48% of the country, of 47.7 are illiterate, and unemployment rate is 9.1%. Unemployment rate basically is not something that determines the situation of the people, because that basically just tells us if you have a job, whatever that job is, then you're considered employed. And like Hossam mentioned, I mean, sometimes you could have whatever degree you would have worked hard for a degree, and then you end up doing a job that probably doesn't even pay your bills. So basically, I think the Office of Global Learning gave you a handout that kind of summarizes the situation. But let's talk a little bit more deeply. Basically, this is King Mohammed VI. He is the main representative of the country. At the same time, he is the highest religious authority in the country. And at the same time, he is the head of the military. But he has this reputation of being this soft guy who is into a little bit of romanticism, as opposed to his father, who was known for being kind of a harsh man. And that's the reputation the king has in Morocco. And since he took power, he's been involved in a lot of social work and getting closer to the people, as opposed to his father, who was kind of, to an extent, a bit snobbish, if you wish. But this tells us one thing. If this gentleman is everything in the country, then we have a problem here. And the problem is basically a problem of dependability on an individual in the absence of a system where if that individual is not there, prosperity could continue. So now, great, he's doing a great job, everything, good deal. But at the same time, what would happen if this person dies tomorrow morning? We might end up in turmoil because there is a lot of ethnic differences in the country, and the country is involved in an international conflict referred to as the Western Sahara conflict. So basically, that had to change. And there was momentum for that. What happened in Tunisia and Egypt built the momentum for people in Morocco to go ahead and start speaking out against the injustice and start demanding change a bit more seriously. And positively, actually, well, okay, before we go there, let me just tell you one of the main points that kind of show, although we're making progress at the social level and everything, the level of freedom in Morocco declined, especially at the press. So in 2002, Morocco was ranked 89, which is kind of a decent rank compared to countries in the region. 10 years later, it's 135th, so that's kind of a huge decline. That is kind of noticeable. Now, like in all these countries, there was a movement that kind of triggered the demonstrations. And in Morocco, the movement was called the February 20th movement. Basically, they set up a Facebook page and they started inviting people, demanding changes and all that stuff, whatever we've seen on the streets. The demands in the group on the February 20th movement were different. Some people actually, you would be surprised, some people wanted an Islamic state, some others wanted no religion at all involved. So there was a mixture of demands that could be summarized in one word that could be interpreted differently by every person. And that word is justice, basically. So, I mean, one thing that did not let that movement flourish, or probably one of the factors that made the Moroccan regime kind of lucky, because the other thing that made them lucky is that they were able to learn the lesson very quickly from what happened in Tunisia and Egypt, is the reputation of their leaders. I mean, like you could see this guy right there with that beard, and this other guy right there with their beard. They're Islamists? No, they're not. The gentleman to the right, his name is Oussama Al-Khalifi. We went to the same middle school, actually. I was just 2 years older than him. He is a Christian. He converted back from Islam to Christianity, and he started promoting Christianity in a country where the population is 100% Muslim. The other person called for eating publicly in Ramadan, and that's not something that's going to be accepted in a society that is 100% Muslim. So basically, people started being afraid of these people, saying, well, what are their goals? They probably just want to change the country to the worst. Yet, the demands were kind of, besides justice, there was a problem in the constitution that needed to change. And basically, in the handout that the Office of Global Learning gave you, it's mentioned that the king kind of declared some changes in June. Actually, no, that's not 100% accurate. It's true, but there was a constitutional amendment. Basically, the Constitution of Morocco, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go read through all this. Basically, the king is everybody. And it goes beyond that. And this is the part that Islamists don't like, is that the king is sacred and inviolable. To them, the only creature or entity that is sacred is God. And if you put a person as sacred, then you're stepping away from the teachings of the religion. So all this stuff needed to change, and positively, the king reacted fast within a matter of a few weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, announced constitutional change, formed a committee to look at the current constitution and amend it to the best of the country. And the thing I liked and I loved so much about the process is that it involved everybody almost. It involved political parties, unions, and even individuals. So this is basically how the Moroccan parliament looks like during its very first session. They have to dress up in traditional clothing. So yes, political parties were involved, unions, but also individuals. And this is one of my Facebook friends. His name is Mohammed Sokrat. His life is basically in alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, and anything that is defined as social deviance within the Moroccan context. But he was invited actually to speak to the Constitutional Commission, although he has technically there is no relevance for inviting him, since he even insults the king publicly on the internet and calls for his death sometimes. So it was good. As a conclusion, what happened is there was a constitutional amendment that, as mentioned in that document you have there, the king gave some of his powers to prime minister. So in the past, the king used to choose the prime minister regardless of, from whatever party he wants, regardless of the results of the elections. Now, he's kind of obliged to choose the prime minister from the party that's going to win the parliamentary elections. It's still a milestone, it's not enough, but relatively speaking, compared to what's happening in that region, it's still a positive thing that people need to work on. And until today, people are still protesting, making more demands. Some are going to boycott the elections. We're going to have elections next month. I'm going to be there to vote. People are still protesting. Some of them are going to boycott because they don't like the way politics are still run. They're not satisfied with the constitution and all that stuff. How much time do I still have, please?
You're almost.
Okay. I guess I'll conclude by saying thank you very much again. And I think now we're going to move to our new friend, Khadija. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yassine. So as Yassine mentioned, young Moroccans are playing a very major role in the change in Morocco. Even though the change is relatively slow and calm, but Moroccans are still protesting until today, hoping for a better future. And now let's welcome Khadija to talk about Yemen.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is the flag of Yemen. This is the flag of my country, Yemen. The flag of Yemen consists of 3 colors: red, which is the symbol of the blood of martyrs who died and sacrificed for the freedom of Yemen, and white, which is the symbol of the bright future that we all dream of, and black, which is a symbol of the dark past that we already lived and we don't want to remember. Actually, Yemen is in southwest of Asia. Yemen is located exactly in the southern Arabian Peninsula. As you can see, the area of Yemen is slightly larger, twice the size of Wyoming, and the population is almost like 25 million, and 3/4 of those population are under 25. So you can imagine, like, youth are 3/4 of the population, and like unemployment of these youth and of the population is about 35%. So unemployment is high in my country. The current situation, Yemen is, although Yemen is considered as one of the developing countries, unfortunately Yemen is going back by time. People are getting poorer and poorer, and as you can see, like 42.8% of the people are under poverty line. They are below poverty line. And also like bad health care, corruption, and illiteracy, 49%. So if the people are illiterate, it's hard for them, you know, to improve their countries because they can't even read. This is the problem that we have. People start to realize that the situation that they are living is not the one that they dreamed of. They saw the world around them. They see people are developing. People are going to innovate and to do everything, and they still like cannot even get the basics right, the basic services that they need. So in the February 3rd, after they saw the revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt and Morocco and all these things, they decide that they cannot handle these things. So in the 3rd February 2011, people called it the Day of Rage. So what happened? What youth wanted to do? What are their demands? They revolt in that day. I will let you see what happened in that day. Can you?
On February 3rd, we went to the streets, demanding dignity,
freedom, and life worth living.
We placed our tents outside of Sana'a University, and we chanted,
"Here's where we will stay till we overthrow the regime."
8 months later, we are still here, peacefully calling for change.
Tribesmen, academics, writers, students, farmers, artists.
We all stand here side by side singing our national anthem.
وسيبقى نبض قلبي يمنيا.
My heart beats to the tune of Yemen.
Our nation began to see hope through us.
They began to feel our thirst for freedom and the love in our hearts.
They began to feel that a dream can become a reality.
Despite our peaceful resistance, we faced brutal attacks by government security forces.
The same forces that took an oath to protect us have now turned against us. Where is humanity? Where is the world to stand against us?
The world is blind to a new Yemen that was born in Chain Square.
We want a civil government to replace the brutal military dictatorship. We want to restructure the military institution so it becomes for all the people, not a property for one family.
We want the decentralization of power.
We want independent institutions with an independent judiciary.
We want the release of hundreds of political detainees.
We want an end to the corruption.
We want improved health care.
We want better education.
More than 400 people were killed and thousands were wounded. For them, we can never stop demanding our basic rights. We will continue doing it peacefully, with pride. Will you support us and break the silence?
So as you saw, like, people, they are just youth. They live in their country. They want to enjoy their life. They want to get their basic rights that they have all the right to get. That's how our revolution started. youth are of Yemen. They are seeking of real democracy. They want to participate. They want to change and be able to change and replace the government freely through fair and free election, not people choose upon them. They want social development. They want to participate in all lives, in civic life and political life. They want freedom, dignity. They want equality and justice. I think these are basics, they're basics rights. So what are the youth demands in my country? They want a civil government. They want a government that is founded to protect them. A government for the country, not a government for itself. They want a new constitution. They believe that the constitution that we have is only applying for the head of the government. They want to get rid of corruption. They want to reform a public military, because the problem that we have in the military, it's a family military, not a public military. They want to resolve the issue of the South. By the way, Yemen was divided into a South and a North. We are actually, in 1990, we were united and we become one country. And maybe because of the problems that we have now, we are facing the danger of separation. We want to be forever one Yemen. And people also want to improvement in all the life fields. Yemen, after people revolt, Yemen is now unrest. Youth went out to the streets. They went to their university to revolt there. And because they want their basic rights, Yemen is now in unrest because of this. People are dying there. People are fighting each other. Not the youth who went out to get their rights. No, other people, two kinds of people, like the government and one of the tribes, they are fighting each other. And the youth who wants their rights, they are dying because of they are fighting. Actually, I want to tell you a story about myself. 1 week before I came here, I was in a pharmacy, like anybody, like everybody goes to the pharmacies. I was in a pharmacy, and one minute, like I saw like people, the army of the government and one of the tribes people, they started to fight each other, and I had to stay in the pharmacy. I had to lay down on the floor, because they were shooting each other and using rockets and everything. So I had to lay on the ground so I cannot get injured or I may not die. And I stayed there for hours waiting for them to stop fighting so I can go home. Actually, I survived because I would die in that accident. Actually, I think I survived because for me to be here and tell you about the truth, the things that the youth in my country are facing, because they only think that they may change themselves first and then change their country. That's why they are facing all these problems. And a great example that I'm very proud of is Tawakkul Kurman, the Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2011. Actually, they call her in my country the Iron Woman. And they also call her the mother of the revolution, because she's a journalist and she's a politician and she's also a human rights activist. She's now revolting with the youth. She is staying in front of the university and she will never go home. She said she promises that she will never go home unless in a new Yemen, in a better Yemen. So actually I think that they gave her the Nobel Peace Prize to prove to the world that Yemeni youth are peaceful and they are demanding their basic rights peacefully. And as a youth, my dream is, actually I have, of course, a lot of dreams personally and also for my country. Besides all the basic rights that everybody in my country wants, like a better education, a better government, and a better health care. Beside all these things, of course, I want personally to dedicate my knowledge, the knowledge that I got in my country, and I'm here speaking to you to English because I learned it in my country. I want to dedicate that knowledge and to serve my country. I came here to learn from this country and to learn and then go back to my country so I can serve my country with the knowledge that I got. And I want to see my people leading a better life because they deserve that. And of course, my last dream is to see Yemen as one of the top countries, because I believe that that can happen. At last, I want to say that Yemen has everything to be a better country. It has a great history. It has a rich natural resources, and more of that, it has a people who are eager to change, who are eager to develop themselves. So I believe that one day Yemen will and can be a better country. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadija. As Khadija mentioned, youth in Yemen are seeking for freedom, dignity, justice, and social development. They can achieve these dreams by getting rid of the corruption, having social unity between the north and the south of Yemen, in addition to improvements in different health and education fields. And if Tawakkul Karaman, who we all are proud of, can achieve the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011, there's a chance for other Yemeni people and Middle Eastern people to reach that position and have a better influence in the youth of their countries. And now we're going to move to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I'll be presenting my country. I will give you some background about Saudi Arabia. As you can see, the population is a little bit, slightly above 26 million, including 5.5 non-national. And the point I mentioned, the 5.5 million non-national, because that's part of the problem later, or the issue that I'm going to discuss. As you can see, the youth under 30 years old are about 65%, so we have a huge youth population. Literacy rate is 78.8%, and the good news is the education in Saudi Arabia has been increasing every year with a scholarship program that the government is taking care of. Unemployment rate is 10.8%. And tonight I'm going to focus in my presentation mainly on women's involvement in Saudi Arabia, because that's the issue I want to talk about. As in the 1970s and 80s, education, urbanization, and the development of policies had a very positive effect on Saudi women and the social structure of Saudi Arabia. Most women by the late 70s, early 80s, they already graduated from high school and already entered college. By early 1990s, women had proved themselves competent to succeed in employment that had been perceived as men's work, because most of them at that time, they already graduated from college. So we can see there is transition in education, which is a very important element for women in Saudi Arabia. By the late 1990s, women are participating in a variety of roles in the society, such as businesswomen, scientists, surgeons, lawyers, journalists, social workers, etc. So many positions has been held by Saudi women, where in the 80s or 70s, most women were working as either teachers or as doctors, and they were limited by these positions. But you can see there is this huge step and change by the late 1990s that most women are basically in most fields except government. In 2009, there was a huge switch in Saudi Arabia's women involvement in the society. In 2009, Saudi Arabia, for the first time, has named women as Deputy Minister for Education, and that's the highest level for women to participate in so far. And her name is Noor Al-Fayez. She was named the Deputy Minister for Women's Education. So the door now is open for more chances for us in the future. By 2011, Saudi women now have the right, in September 25 of 2011, King Abdullah has decided to give women the right to vote in the next election, which is in 2015, but unfortunately, women still cannot drive, and that's the issue that I want to discuss with you tonight. I'm sure most of you are asking, if women are increasing in education, women are traveling, women are having these rights. I mean, it's been increasing for women. Why can't they still drive? The main reason I would say it's women's dignity. That's the way it's perceived in Saudi. There was a fatwa, which means Islamic policy or regulation, by the head of the Department of Religious Research, Missionary Activities, and Guidance that women shouldn't be allowed to drive because Islam supported women's dignity. However, the fatwa did not say Islam forbade women's driving. So the point of dignity, that's how people think of it, that women shouldn't drive. But in Islamic law, there's no such thing as women can't drive. There's not a single verse in the Holy Book that says women cannot drive. Yes, we understand the point of women's dignity, and that's very important, and we're still with it, because that's who we are as Muslims and as Saudis. But now we're in 2011. We can't be in the 60s anymore. If we can travel and we can be part of the scholarship program of the government, and we can be surgeons and lawyers and whatever, and we even enter the ministry, then we should drive, and that's the next step. We can't take, I know that some people were asking, why you can't take that step right away, and if the king is supporting the idea of women's driving, and so many people are supporting the idea of women's driving, we cannot just decide, overnight that, women have to drive the next day, because we have 5 million foreigners in Saudi Arabia, and most of them are drivers. So you cannot overnight decide that, okay, you know what, all drivers will go back to their countries. It will cause a huge economic problem in one night. So if women, I think King Abdullah has a very smart strategy. If women can drive and can be in the ministry, then the driving decision will come soon, but not right away. I will share with you a video of, and also I want to mention something for the driving issue. It's also, the main idea behind it before the fatwa is from a moral standpoint that women shouldn't associate with unrelated men. And that was the main reason for the old Saudi regulations, and that women shouldn't be allowed to drive. But that was, as I said before, not in the 2011 anymore. And I want to also make sure they understand the point that I will focus on that it's not an Islamic law, it's a Saudi regulation. And I would like to share with you a video by MENA al-Sharif, who protested in June 17th of 2011 to support the idea of driving.
Hands on the wheel, keys in the ignition, and the Black Eyed Peas' I Got a Feeling plays as the rallying soundtrack for women to drive. A groundbreaking initiative organized on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter to get women into the driver's seat in Saudi Arabia. Hundreds of women have signed up to hit the road on June 17th, and Manal Al-Sharif is one of them.
We are not against the law, we're not protesting, we're not doing anything that's breaking the law. We made this clear, and we are all Saudis who started this thing, and we love our country.
The streets of Riyadh and Jeddah are full of cars driven exclusively by men. Strict segregation by sex means women can't travel without a male relative, and they can't take public transport. To get around, women hire expensive drivers or taxis. It's a daily frustration.
First of all, where is your left foot?
So Manal and dozens of other women decided it was time to take the wheel. She and other women with international licenses are also offering driving lessons in Saudi's rural areas. Manal took this video of giving her first lesson. But this is only a small step on a long road.
We say a saying in Arabic, أول الغيث قطرة. The rain starts with a drop. So this thing is really symbolic thing for us women driving. Very basic need, very insignificant right for us. And I think this will encourage women to take action, to take lead in their life.
Now Women to Drive is gathering signatures for a letter to Saudi's King Abdullah, informing him that as of June 17th, women will be in the driver's seat. Atika Schubert, CNN, London.
My future as a young Saudi female, basically, before I talk about my dreams, since 2005, King Abdullah has been focusing on two major goals, education and urbanization of Saudi Arabia. And he included women as well as men. There was no sex segregation at that point. He has been building he built the biggest women-only university in the whole world, and it's called Princess Noor University in Riyadh. He has been sending hundreds of thousands of students on a full 4-year scholarship, completing with all living allowances, health insurance, and you name it, on the government, including women too. And he built the biggest economic city in the world, and it's called King Abdullah's Economic City, where 2 million people can live there, and there are, it's homes for 2 million and jobs for 1 million. So that's also equal for men and women. So my dreams are, basically the main dream is, if we can have amazing opportunities in education and in jobs, why can't we drive? But I know that the driving step is coming the next few years for sure. And I hope that once we have driving decision, that's going to be a positive thing in our country, and we build it, and and Saudi can be a better one, a better country for men and women over there. I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and if you have any questions, please free to ask. And we have 2 microphones, one over there and one over there, and we're going to start with the Q&A session.
I have 2 questions. One question for Yemen, for Moroccan speaker, Mr. Yassine Elkaryani, and one question from our Saudi speaker. The question regarding Morocco is regarding the Western Sahara. There's been an issue that has been going on for a while, and there are people who are suffering in the area. And what are your opinions? Like, what's going on? And the Polisario situation and the refugee situation. Like, my understanding is that there are 100,000 of refugees in Algeria, and same number of refugees in Sahara under the Moroccan government control, and there are walls built by the Moroccan government, and there are mines been planted by the Moroccan government around the wall, which poses danger to the sub-Saharan, Western Saharan population. So what are your opinions on that? With regards to the Saudi, what are your opinions with regards to the Shia minority who have been tortured and imprisoned? And actually last week there were a few Shias that were arrested by the Saudi government who were just peacefully protesting. Human Rights Watch reported, Amnesty International reported all these atrocities that are going on in Saudi Arabia against the Shia. And in summer, I believe it was, that Saudi Arabia sent troops to Bahrain to actually topple the peaceful demonstration by the Shias and Shia majority actually in Bahrain. So if you could please elaborate on these 2 points, thank you.
You actually, you're asking for a documentary, not really a question right there. Okay, first, I'm not really a big fan of the Moroccan regime, just to be on the, just to set some common ground between me and you. Basically, let's talk about the wall. You mentioned the wall that's causing danger to the citizens. Basically, the wall was built in 1982 to kind of save the country from the penetration of the guerrilla fighters from the Frente Polisario, who were actually able to get inside the country and attack the Moroccan military inside. So the best solution and the most efficient the Moroccan army was able to come up with was to build literally a wall to separate itself from the Frente Polisario. Now, talking about the situation in general, we're not going to go over a lecture to just give the background and all that. Let's get to what's happening today in that region. For those who are not familiar with the issue, I'm so sorry, we're not going to be able to elaborate on that. But to answer your question, basically, I think that the solution that Morocco is offering to that conflict is fair. Because basically, the problem was, for the last, I'm not sure how much time, probably 15 years, the problem was who's going to vote on the referendum to decide on the fate of Western Sahara. And there was never an agreement on who's going to vote in that referendum. The Frente Polisario is asking for, is saying basically anybody who was in Western Sahara in 1974 are the ones who are going to be eligible to vote. Morocco is saying, well, no, the demographics have changed. There are people who were born there. There are people who were raised there. Those people need to be given the opportunity to vote. So at the end, no solution. What Morocco is offering now on the table is a plan for autonomy for Western Sahara under the umbrella of the Moroccan Kingdom. To me, that's a fair solution compared to what the other party is offering. The Frente Polisario is still stuck in the referendum conditions, while the Moroccan regime has moved to another step to kind of solve the problem. But at the end of the day, you are right. This problem has got to be resolved as soon as possible because a lot of people are suffering from it. A lot of people are living under terrible conditions as refugees in Algeria. And sometimes their families are refugees in Algeria, and the rest of the family is in Morocco. So this is, to an extent, a humanitarian crisis that the world community needs to to move on to try to resolve at this point, because we should kind of put politics aside a little bit and try to find a solution that's going to benefit the people first before benefiting the countries and the regimes. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer your question because I don't have the knowledge to answer the question. And please, if you have any questions, are there any questions?
My name is Ahmed Al-Shammari. I am from Saudi Arabia. Actually, I want to start with a question about Shias in the east of Saudi Arabia. It was actually like uprising last week. It was not peaceful. Many people, they say peaceful, but they were shooting some policemen. I saw YouTube about for the prince of east of the Saudi Arabia. He went to the hospital. He visited some soldiers in Saudi Arabia who were shooted by the minority people of Shias, not all Shias. Also in Bahrain, it's the same situation. It was the same situation. They were killing many people in Bahrain. And for some people who don't know what is the who is behind that, I feel that Iran has I don't know, but I feel that Iran is behind what happened in Bahrain and the east of Saudi Arabia. This is really clear because both are Shias. I want to also, regarding of the woman driving, in Saudi Arabia, the majority of people, I remember I did a statistic in high school, in female school, the majority of Saudi people, they don't accept women driving. I remember I did my research, including 100 female, 90 females answer with no, we don't want to drive in Saudi Arabia. This years, maybe in future it will be changed. Also regarding of Manal al-Sharif, the women who drive in Saudi Arabia, actually it's nothing to do with Islam. Islam has, as Reem said, there is no verse in the Holy Book of Quran that said driving is prohibited. Even in the best period of Islam, Prophet Muhammad was females were participating in everything with Prophet Muhammad. So it's nothing to do with Islam. Finally, I want to end with this. What Manal al-Sharif did when she went driving, actually, I don't know, but I feel that was not acceptable and it was not wise also. Because in the USA here, we have a law that prohibit people under 18 years old for driving. So imagine that if people who are 15, they went driving and go to the street, breaking the law. It's really, I don't know, I think the best solution for that is to go to the officials, the government, discuss that with them. Maybe you will come up with a result, This is, I think, the best solution. And we know the government of Saudi Arabia, they are opening their doors for all people in Saudi Arabia. Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I have an answer. so that might help you a little bit. I want to talk about this issue. I disagree with the last person who talked about the divide between Shia and Sunni. I believe the whole essence of democracy to be inclusive to all citizens regardless of their ethnic, religious, national, gender, or racial background. In Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, for example, in the case of Bahrain, the majority of people there are Shia. And those majority people were second-class citizens in that country. Citizens, human beings, cannot be treated in their own country as second-class citizens. In a democratic system, citizens participate in the welfare and resources of their nation and participate in building it. It's true that there are regional forces intervening in those countries. For example, in the case of Syria, we know that Saudi Arabia is very much involved against the Syrian regime. In Syria, we also know that Israel is very much involved in changing the regime, destabilizing Syria. The same thing in the Hariri camp in Lebanon. The same thing as the US and the Jordan are all those forces acting, trying to destabilize Syria, which is true to some extent. And recently there have been a very kind of clear proof to that. In spite of all those international, regional interventions, the citizens in Syria deserve a decent life to live under democracy. Therefore, the claims that the government says all the time that there are insurgencies coming from foreign countries and shooting at our soldiers, even if it's really true, citizens in Syria deserve a democratic regime. And the regime in Syria has to change in order to accommodate the needs of all people, not a selected group of elitist people that they think they are the representative of God on earth, and they treat their countries as if it was their own estate. This is not right. Thank you.
For one thing, my name is Christine Vitale, and I work in career development, and it's so good to see some of you again, because we don't get much chance to speak outside of career issues. So it's good to be able to hear some of what you have to say. So I thank you for your presentations. But I wanted to ask you this. In this country, many times we hear about certain citizens groups demanding their rights. What often isn't discussed is what their responsibilities are in their pursuits of obtaining their rights. And I'm wondering if anyone here on the panel might speak to that question. I mean, many people demand rights, but we overlook what sometimes responsibilities may be as citizens. And sometimes, in some cases, that is what needs to be addressed. At least I could speak for certain demographic groups in the United States who have made a case for their rights. Some will argue that they don't handle their responsibilities. So anything that you might say on this subject would enlighten me.
Okay. Actually, in the old regime, a lot of protesters have like small protesting to get their rights, because they always work like getting a lot of effort, getting a lot of things, and they don't get back. For example, I'll talk about a student at a school of pharmacy, and when you want to be a professor in university, you must be from the top 10. In school of pharmacy, from the top 10 to be a professor, okay? And one of your rights is to get a better education, to get a better quality as a pharmacy student. And we really suffered in School of Pharmacy in Egypt. Students really suffer. It's really difficult curriculum, and it's really more difficult than here in the United States. I came here on a scholarship, and I studied parts of the School of Pharmacy, and really students there are suffering. And one of the requirements we student wants to get is we study, and we really suffered. Where is the better education? Each university has a certain budget for improving education, but where is the budget go for? We don't know. Some parts of I don't know, my colleagues here have examples or no, but in Egypt, like people in you find in Egypt all protesting for minor people who work in governmental like companies or governmental like work. They really suffered and they have a lot of work, and this is their responsibility is to do their work as it is, right? Or they have to get their own, like to get their job perfectly, but no back, no money, because all of money go to the high position leaders. Like for example, one of the wonders, newly graduated student in Egypt from pharmacy school gets $60 per month. Here in the United States gets $60 per hour. You know, you get the difference? So we really, all people like knows their responsibility, and they doing it, and they suffer to fulfill the requirements of a certain job or a certain thing, but no back from the country. And for this reason, until now, all people are protesting. Any person now is protesting for his right, because he's saying, I am doing a good job, I'm doing a lot of things, and no back. But personally, in these days, it's bad to all people to protest, because for sure the country is now building itself. They can't fulfill all requirements for all protesters. And one of the things that I want Egyptian people to do is patience until the country is built itself again, so that they can be like a justice and can be like an equality among certain measures of like work and student universities, improvement of health, because hospital in Egypt is really bad. We need budget for hospital, for universities, for college, for schools, for everything. And I always say to be patient, and it's the responsibility now to be patient. Thank you.
I think I understand your question, that you said that the youth, what are their responsibility? They are demanding for their rights, but what they will offer after they get their rights, right? That was your question?
Not necessarily after they would get their rights, just what responsibilities as citizens do they have to hold up their end, to behave responsibly, to hold up their responsibilities in order to be granted their rights?
Actually, in my country, like, youth are saying that we cannot do what we are responsible for. We cannot serve our countries because even the rules does not give them the right to do that. Because sometimes if there is a corruption in a country, if everybody is corrupted, and even if you don't want to act like them, if you see everybody doing the same thing, sometimes you will have to do that, because this is the way that everybody is running. Everyone is running their things like that. So I think that the youth are saying that we will do our best, we will do our responsibilities, but we want the law that will control everybody. We want everybody to discipline. We will discipline, but we need the rules that will make everybody have to discipline, because this is the thing that we lack. There are many people who really want to discipline, who really want to give their responsibilities for their countries, but when they see that everybody is corrupted, everybody is doing bad things, they just say, like, if I did that, okay, like everybody is doing, so what's the benefit for me to do that? So we need like a rule that control everybody, so everybody will have to discipline. Yeah, I just want to say.
Thanks for your question, ma'am. In the absence of equal opportunity for all citizens, which may cause despair and deception, we cannot ask people for their duties first, because the government is there to serve the people and represent them. So when that's absent, we cannot reach the level of asking people, hey, are you really exercising your responsibilities first before asking for your rights? I think people have the right first to be well represented and to be treated fairly on their land where they are born and raised and working hard enough before we can tell them what are your responsibilities. Give me the conditions to exercise my responsibilities first, and I would not deceive you. But if you're asking me first without giving me the circumstances for me to do what you're asking me to do, It's not going to work. You can't drive a car with 4 flat tires.
Before we close up, I just want to reply and add something for Mr. Ahmed about what Manal al-Sharif did in Saudi. I agree with you that maybe it was a chaos on June 17th, but unfortunately, not every single Saudi family can afford to have a driver. And some of them, they can financially afford it, and some of them, they cannot have it because of, the point of, the moral point that we cannot be mixed. And I understand that. Yes, it wasn't wise, but if she didn't have and she didn't do it on June 17th, the decision will not come faster. We can't wait until 2015 to vote, and then we, look at the point of driving. But I think what she did maybe wasn't wise, but it was for sure a wake-up call to have the decision faster. But yes, it was a chaos, and that wasn't the wise thing. But I hope you answered your questions good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed our night, and with Tiara.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiara Safina Asley. I am the UN NGO Pathway Intern. We would like to thank the panelists for such a great presentation, and I'd like to say that they have shared with us that the Arab Spring does not only address political issues of corruption and dictatorship, but also address social issues, as you can tell, such as inequality and economic issues such as unemployment. Okay. And now I would like to briefly share with you a quote by our very own speaker, Hossam. He said to me when we first met, and we went to Central Park, and he looked around and he said, "Tiara, it's so nice that everything here is so quiet because I came from revolution." And I hope that everyone can internalize what he just said and appreciate them as much as I did. Now, the Office of Global Learning and the UN NGO Pathway would like to thank all the panelists once again, and we would like to present them with the token of our appreciation, one for Dr. Riad Nasser. Everybody give a hand. One for Mr. Yassine Elkaryani. One for Khadija Alami. Sorry. One for Hossam Elsayed Shahin. And of course, one for Ms. Reem Omar Al-Abiyari.